Hey, everybody, this is Patti. Welcome to the witching hour. Yes, that hour of the day when the veil is thin and magic happens. I have some personal, fabulous, dear friend, witchy, psychic, medium, author, friend of mine, the one and only Melissa St. Hilaire. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, Patty. Thank you so much for having me back on.
Oh, no, you are so welcome to be on. We've been trying to get you on for a while in these crazy days of going on. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We've known each other, I don't know how many years, probably met.
So long. I want to say like a decade.
I think we actually at least tried to learn table tipping together. I remember going to your house and trying to do our seance stuff and everything. So for
I,
anybody who doesn't know you yet, tell everybody about who you are and what's going on.
sure, yeah. So I'm an author and a witch and a psychic medium. And to talk about the table tipping, that was sort of my entry into this whole world. I mean, I've been, dabbling and studying this stuff since I was about 12 years old, but it was around that time, I think it was about a decade ago, and I started to think like I want to do seances. And I remember going to your seances and learning from you and thinking yours were so cool and fun. And then I got very into the Victorian spiritualism. And so I started to like take on almost kind of a purist attitude of like, I don't want to use any gadgets. I want everything to be like how they did it in the 1800s. And that's when I started doing the table tipping, which is super fun. And for people who don't know what table tipping is, it's basically you get a round table that usually you want to have like a center pole. You don't want the four legs because then it doesn't tip. But if you get that center pole leg, in the Victorian area, I believe they were called wine tables. I think that's what they were. And the idea is that you sit around, you put your hands gently on the edge of the table, and then, you go through the ritual of, creating sacred space and centering yourself, connecting with your fellow mediums and whoever else is at the table, and then calling in your spirits with the hopes that they will gently rock the table. And then you can create a language out of that where, it could be rock forwards and backwards for yes, side to side for no. And what's really weird is that when I started doing it, I noticed that other things started to happen. Like before the table would rock, there would be a knocking in the center of the table. Do you remember that, Patty? We would do
Yes,
it and they would ask.
it didn't tip, but it knocked.
Right. It would be like, it's not tipping, but it's knocking. So, and it was weird. And I remember the first time I did it, we all got on our knees and looked underneath the table because we were like, you want to rule out and debunk anything that's just, isn't spirit. Right. And we were all like, is this really spirit? We're looking underneath it. And we didn't see, there was no way to even get to the center of the table. There was nothing there that could create a knocking sound. And I remember we started asking questions like, I think we established something like, one knock for yes, two for no, or something like that. And it started talking to us and answering questions. And it's just super fun.
Yeah. Even without ghost equipment, that's what's cool. I'm with you there too. Though it's fun once in a while to add a little bit of equipment if it's quiet
It
and have that
is.
information back and forth. But yeah, that was our first thing and we got knocking right away. And now I must say, yes, those like three-legged table or that center pile table are the best. But last year at at Vulture City, I kind of freaked out because I knew I was doing a seance. This is my cat. This is Gracie
Yes,
for from the visual, and she's crazy, and we love her. Anyway, so I knew every year there I did seances, I did galleries, we did all of a sudden Patty Negri, table tipping. I'm like, what? What? No, I'm not the person to be doing table tipping. So I called my
hilarious.
friend Tim, who kind of grew up in Lilydale kind of stuff. It's like, okay, help me with this. And that's if we do. Yeah, you're gonna feel the ectoplasm on your finger. Oh yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And I must say that uh, I went there and I table tipped with over 50 people. We kept changing people with four people. And this was a four-legged table. And we were dancing across the room. I'm like, I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. And then soon I would even
That's
step away,
amazing.
let the babies do themselves, and it was just it works, you guys. It's spirit, it's magic, it's energy, and honestly better than any ghost meter if you're getting a table all by itself to start bouncing across the floor, rocking, knocking. That's still the most one ever, and I think because the need was so there, the intent was so there, 50 plus people going, this is going to work. It was magic. So this is
That's
part of your
awesome.
regular thing you do now and everything. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's super fun. And I try to incorporate other modalities as too. And of course, I know we both love the dowsing rod. So whenever I'm doing any kind of medium stuff, I have to pull those out because they're so fun. And, it's probably my favorite form of divination with a group of people because everyone can clearly see that you're not affecting them at all. You hold your hands, like this. And I love using those too because it's like such an immediate connection to spirit. You ask like, show me yes. And it's like, boom, like immediately the
Yeah, right. And then literally point to where the spirit is. Whoop, they goes here or go there. Where's Melissa? Over here. It's like
Exactly. It's amazing. I was
amazing.
using that. I did a ghost hunt with the Spirit Realm Network over at Glen Tavern Inn, and it was amazing because, like, we're standing there. We did like a combination of using, my sort of Victorian era stuff, and then my friend Cheryl Plum. I think you know Cheryl Plum. She's sort of like my tech guru. And we were doing this cool thing where I was using the dowsing rods to ask questions and, talk to the spirits in the place. And then her gadgets would answer the same way as the dowsing rod. And I just thought that was so cool. It was such a fun marriage of the two, modalities. And then, of course, we'd ask, like, where the spirits are. And there were times when, like, the dowsing rod was just like, boom, because there are so many spirits in that location. They were going nuts, like just
Wow.
scanning the area.
That's amazing. Yeah, I do like when the techs, I'm not a techie, so it's hard, but somebody else holding that SLS camera, because really, we could say, and I say this all the time, I could say, okay, there's a ghost doing jumping jacks on the table. You believe me or you don't believe me, but now there's
Yeah.
somebody in the other room with an SLS camera and a little green stick figure of a ghost doing jumping jacks. It's like, yes, that's what I see.
Amazing.
And I
Yeah.
just love it. I love that because the paranormal world is its own world. We know that all the ghost hunters and paranormal investigators, and our witchy world is its own world that doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with paranormal and ghost hunting, even if we talk to spirits. But I
Right.
love what you and I do, that we get to combine them and bring our witchy world and magic and respect and knowledge into the paranormal world, which is
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. That's why when I do teach my mediumship series, which I just taught mediumship for Witches one, part one a couple of months ago, and I'll be teaching another series on mediumship for witches in I think it'll be June this year. But I at the Green Man store in North Hollywood. But yeah, that's why I teach that because I saw that there's a lot of classes you can take on witchcraft and there's a lot of classes you can take on mediumship. But I was like, well, wait a minute. Why don't I marry the two? Because that's what I do anyway. That's my everyday.
exactly, exactly. So there's two of us in the work to grow because we both teach it. We both, and that is beautiful. So for all my like new people out there, you live your life just like I do. You live. This is who we are, not just what we do on weekends or full moons or anything like that. How has well, tell us a bit about your path, your witchy path, how you got here, and how it
Wow.
works in your life.
Yeah. Well, I started really young because my mom used to go to psychics all of the time. She used to go to psychics to help and, answer questions and things like that. And so she would bring me along to these psychics. And so I would look at the crystals and the jewelry and the tarot decks and all this stuff. And I got immediately enamored. And I must have been like, I know, I was definitely a preteen, probably 8 or 10, somewhere in there. And then when I was 12, my mom got me my first tarot deck. And it was the oh gosh, now I'm blanking on what it was called. It was that famous one. It was all based on Greek mythology. I think was it the Mythic Tarot? Is that what it's called?
That's
And I immediately became obsessed with it because I was like, you know, it was always so super accurate. Every time I would pull a card for myself, for my mom, for my friends, and then I had a girlfriend at the time. Her name was Kristen, and she was like the smartest girl in the school. We were super tight. We were in all the nerdy classes together. and like, and she had this book on witchcraft, and she was like, she's like, "Oh, Melissa, well, if you're into tarot, you've got to check out witchcraft as well." And of course, I'd been going to Salem all the time. Like I lived in Massachusetts. We were super close. So the combination of like reading my friend's book, getting into tarot, and then going to Salem sort of blossomed in me this interest and this intrigue into this other world. And I feel like I was partly interested in it because ever since I was about 3, I could see spirits. And, to the point where when I was a child, a little toddler, I didn't understand that everyone couldn't necessarily see them. I just thought that was normal. And of course, now as an adult, I don't quite see them as clearly as I did then because, when you're little, it's just wide open. But right. And then it kind of goes away for a little while. So it's like, so I had this like preteen sort of obsession with it. I got very into Wicca at that time. I think it was the Wicca Handbook by Eileen Holland. I believe it was a popular book in the like 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And so I considered myself Wiccan for a long time. And then about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, however long ago it was, I discovered the Green Man store and started studying British traditional craft. And then I fell in love with that. And then, in between there, I studied Egyptian magic, and which is, I got to say, Egyptian magic is the most potent magic I have ever worked in my life. and and then of course I studied also Norse magic. So anyway, I was like sort of studying all of these different versions, and I started to realize like I don't really think I'm a Wiccan. I think I might be eclectic because I like borrowing from a lot of different sources. And then I had my DNA checked and everything made sense because I'm like everything. I've got a mix. I've got Egyptian in there. I've got British in there. I've got, Scandinavian in there. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, now all of the things I'm interested make sense to me. And so now I kind of just, if I were to label my craft now, which I don't really love labels.
I don't either. Oh my God.
Right. But if I were to label it, I'd probably call it spirit craft because I've landed at a place where I view the world like through animism. I feel like everything has a spirit in it. And, if you talk to these spirits, if you work with these spirits, you notice that there's different types, and you know this, Patty, there's all different types of spirits. It's not just people who've died. It's,
Oh,
there are elementals and fairies and, you know, star spirits, planet spirits, tree spirits. They're everywhere,
we
and I try to incorporate all of that into my magic.
Well, I mean, you could have been telling my story. You are my little sister from another mother and another father, because me too, I was seeing spirits with the kids. As a kid, I do think that kids can see it, but it just gets taught out of us in our Western, modern, non-mystical society. That's your imaginary friend. They took away, they base everything on left brain logic, and the magic went away, but it just didn't get taught out of us, some of us. But if we all had that wonder of kids. But I do think Wicca is entry level witchcraft, and not that you can't stay with it or whatever. Me too. Scott
Right.
Cunningham, the whole thing. And this is, yes, oh, elements, oh, this. And then it's like, oh, but I like this same thing, the Norse and the Tradcraft and the this and the Egyptian and this. I don't have a title either. I let eclectic is the ghostess, but then that's so overused. So I like
Exactly.
yours. We have to borrow that.
Yeah,
I don't know
spirit.
what I spirit craft.
And you know what my recent obsession is? I have to show you this book. So this is my recent obsession, and it's the Key of Solomon, the King. And I had been reading the three occult, the 3 books of occult philosophy. I'm dyslexic, so sometimes I mix up my titles, but that's by Henry Grippus. Or anyway, it's Agrippa, and I was reading that book, and then I started to get sort of drawn to the Solomon seal. So then I started diving. So this is like, and this is how it works for me. This is my craft. Like I discover something new and like dive in and try to learn everything I can about it. And then, use that and incorporate that and then find something new that I dive into and like use everything about it. And I find like with these, it works really well with the spirits. And, it's amazing. Like there's even one seal of Solomon that in my mind I think of as the ghost hunter's seal because
Really? Because I have a few medallions, Keys of Solomon and thing. I'm a big sigil girl. So what is the what is the ghosty key?
well, I think of it, so I have it right here. I didn't want to wear it because when I wear it, it clangs with the others and makes too much noise. But it is the third pentacle of Jupiter. And it's basically the idea is that you can, in the book they say control spirits, but I don't really like that terminology because I don't want to control anything.
Right.
But it's more the idea that it sort of attracts spirits, but good spirits, and but then also repels negative spirits. So,
Ooh.
right, so I was like, oh, I love that. And you invoke it with a psalm, and and then you can just use it as you see fit. And so I would just say, I would hold it and be like, any spirits that are present who are who intend good and positive things, please come forth. Any negative spirits, please stay back. And I just got the sigil like a couple of days ago, and it works. It's really strong.
That is awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to check that one out. I mean, that is beautiful because again, there's such power in a sigil, in a symbol for. So yeah,
It's
everybody, that is a nice thing for everybody to check out. So speaking of books, you have a brand new book just getting released. Tell us.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm so excited. So I wrote it, I think it was like 2 years ago that I wrote it, and it's finally coming out on May 7th and this year. And it's called 30 Real Signs from the Afterlife. And the publisher is Callisto, but it's being distributed by Simon and Schuster and then also Source Books under Penguin Random House. And this is like a total dream come true. I have wanted to be traditionally published for as long as I can remember. As long as I could read a book, I've wanted to be traditionally published. And, I tried many different paths to get here. And, every single one of them kind of was meant with resistance, and you know how magic is, if you come across resistance, there's a reason for that,
Mm.
so it's like, okay, well, don't push it. Maybe it's meant for later. And then this book unfolded like it was absolute magic how it unfolded. The publisher reached out to me. They were like, "Oh, we're looking for an expert in mediumship and someone who can talk about it with like non-denominational." And I was like, "I can do that." You know what I mean? No problem. And I know I taught for so many years. I just took all of my classes and I kind of skimmed the cream off the top and like put that into the book. And the first part of the book is basically all about how to connect with spirit. I talk about all the things that we're talking about now, the fact that I'm convinced that we are all born with this ability. I acknowledge that some of us are maybe a little more adept at it than others, just like some people can draw better than others. But honestly, anybody can draw if you pick up a pen and just start doodling. So I look at mediumship the same way. We can all communicate with spirit, and I truly believe that we are always communicating with spirit without even realizing it half the time, and that we're always getting signs from the afterlife. And we just don't even know what that is or how to interpret it or what's happening. So the idea behind the book is the first part is to teach you how to set sacred space, how to protect yourself, how to set intentions so that you know what you're looking for. Because if you just go like, spirit, talk to me, you might miss
Right.
something. It's a little too vague. So I try to teach through the book, this is how to sort of prepare yourself so that you know what to look for. And then the second part of the book is just basically like a reference guide. I went and I studied, I read so many books, so many dream dictionaries, and so on and so forth, read articles. I just, devoured everything to talk about, like, well, if you see a butterfly, this is what it could possibly mean. If you see a bird, this is what it could possibly mean, and so on and so forth. So that, people would start to learn how to recognize it when it happens and then how to interpret it, because that's the other missing element to it. We might see a feather, but what does it mean?
Right. And I do that in my mediumship. It's a language. You have to learn your spirit language because yours might be slightly different than mine, slightly different than the next guy's. So it's that, it's literally its own language. The feather,
It's
the this, the that. It,
exactly. And so and
flesh, yes.
one of the key things that I try to tell people is, use what I'm sharing for definitions of these things. These are interpretations as a launch pad, and then try to figure out like what it is for you. And in the back of the book, there is a journal area so that you can write down, this is what I experienced. This is when I experienced it. This is how I was feeling when it happened. And then you can, like what you said, you can create your own spirit language because, for example, seeing a black cat is going to mean different things to different people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you're terrified of cats, that might be some kind of an omen or a warning. But if you love cats, it's telling you that things are great and it's going to work out.
No, and that's a funny one because cats, just the general overgeneralization, in America, a black cat crossing your path is considered bad luck. In Europe, it is considered good luck. The difference of a
Right.
notion. Yeah, it's like, but every person's gonna, like you said, if you like cats, you don't like cats.
It's going to be different. Right.
And we both like cats.
Yeah. Yeah. You might have heard one while I was talking. I have one right
Somewhere.
behind me.
Oh, they're so cute. They're so cute.
She's a funny little one. I'm convinced that a spirit brought me this cat that's behind me. Her name is Jasmine, and she's a Siamese. And I have my whole life, I've always wanted to have a Siamese cat. And when I was little, my grandfather, who passed away when I was 3, and he's actually the first spirit that I remember seeing, but he had a Siamese cat who used to like ride on his shoulders everywhere. And when he passed away, that cat just vanished, which I always thought was very strange and sort of mystical in its own way. But
Yeah.
then I kept asking, like, the spirits, like, God, I would really love to have a Siamese one day. But, I don't buy my cats. I rescue them. So I was like, I'll probably never get one unless one happens to just be randomly born in my front yard. And then you know what happened?
Randomly born in the front yard? Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So I had to sit there and say, thank you, Grandpa, because I knew it was him. I knew he was like, now here you go. This is our connection. You have your Siamese cat, and she is a handful. She's a little nut.
I have to ask you, because I've always had cats. I've always had dogs. I've always had them both together. I've always had every other kind of animal growing up. But I've never had a Siamese cat because my mother was convinced that only Siamese cats climb the curtains. Does your Siamese cat
Oh,
climb the curtain?
yes, they
Really?
do. Yes,
Mother
yes,
was
they
right.
Your mom was right. She will climb the curtains. I have blinds. She will climb the blinds. There have been times when I have heard this panicked mew and I come running into the living room and she's like halfway up the blind, stuck between and hanging over. And I'm like, oh my, like, you little nutcase, how did this even happen?
Oh, that is funny. So you were right, Mom, because I was, but I like Siamese cats. No, they'll climb the curtains. Okay, then I'll get every other kind of cat. That's
Right?
hysterical. Well,
Yeah, I have to say they are definitely a handful. I love her though. I love her so much. People come over and everyone loves her because she's so quirky and like she has to introduce herself to everybody. She's like, okay, you're allowed to come in. You're not allowed to come in.
anyway, well, this is wonderful. So before we go, you guys, you're gonna love Melissa like I love Melissa, always have, and it's great to get to catch up doing this. This is awesome. We're gonna have to go play together again soon. A ghost hunt, a seance, anything. But tell all our listeners and watchers where they can find you online, websites, shops, and anything you have coming up.
Yeah, so on May 11th, I am doing a book signing / workshop at the Green Man store. I'm going to be doing the workshop on what I call spirit scribbling. It's basically automatic writing, but it leaves the door open for drawing as well. And it's basically a workshop on how to channel spirits to help remove like creative blocks and things like that. So if you're a writer, artist, that kind of thing. But it's also great just to get questions answered. So I'm doing that May 11th. And then you can find me on my website, AmericanWitch13.com. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the social medias, Blue Sky, though I rarely post there. But you can find me, my biggest one is probably Instagram, and that's American Witch 13 as well. And anything that I do, like any upcoming seances or ghost hunts or classes, will all be posted there.
Great. American Witch 13. And that's my number too. I was born on the 13th. So my little sister.
Awesome.
uh, anyway, well, thank you, Melissa. You guys like her, follow her. I highly recommend everything about you. So, and your book releases May
May
8th.
7th, yes, May 7th, the book comes out. You can pre-order it now. It's on, Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, Target, all of the major retailers. It's out there, 30 Real Signs from the Afterlife.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing your magic to the witching hour.
Thank you.